I must thank our speakers again for their very, very inspiring presentation and sharing to us. Actually, I have thought that the role of moderator is easy. But after I heard all their presentation, I think that is really difficult. And I can see that questions from the floor are flowing in through my iPad. So in any case, I have read the questions presented to me, and then I try to summarize it put forward questions to our speakers to have further deliberation and further discussion. First of all, I would like to put the question to Minister Liu, 刘先生。我常常记得周恩来总理他说了一句话，他说我们中国这么大，我们每一个成就当分给我们十多亿人民的时候，它都是个小的成就。如果我们每一个问题它长达10多亿，就是一个大问题了。那么我们的国家过去几年，我们向世界展示了一个很好的我们的成就，就是我们消除绝对的贫穷。这个是每一点点来干，但最后它的成就，我觉得是非常大的。但是我刚刚听到刘司长说，我们的市区里面，我们城镇里面还有很多的小区，我们要改造。你提的数字吓我一跳啊！4000多万户，20多万个小区，在2025年有10多万个小区的工作要开展，还是研究展开啊。那么我看了你的报告，就是我觉得是3个问题，三个方面的力量。一个就是政府的公权力，第二就是社区里面这个群众他们的支持跟协调啊，跟医院。第3个就是你说到的这个市场的力量。那么这三个部分，从你在北京中央政府、人民政府的层面来说，怎么样去协调这3点，然后能够为我们的国家的小区的改造得到最好的成绩。事实上，你的分享对我们香港来说也非常有用。
谢谢林教授。其实刚才在听了新加坡的同事，然后同行，然后英国的同行，香港的同行讲的时候，我也在反思我的演讲。我觉得我的演讲和其他3位嘉宾其实还是有很大的区别的。我觉得我讲的没有他们那么精彩，没有他们那么具体，没有他们那么对未来的一个愿景的一个美好的展示。其实后来我又想，我如果像那样的方式来讲，有没有可讲的东西呢？其实可以讲的东西非常非常多，但是呢，从我的这个角色，我觉得好像我可以讲的，也只有我今天讲的这样，可能是更符合中国整个的平均的一个水平。其实中国最大的一个问题就是，比起3位嘉宾面对的问题，就是我们的国家太多，人口太大，然后不同的地方差异特别多。其实新加坡的陈局长讲的东西和英国这讲的东西，其实在我们浙江和他们是完全一样的。浙江有一个概念叫未来社区，就是我们全国其他的大部分的地方在做老旧小区改造的时候，它已经在做未来社区的建设。这未来社区它有9个场景，其中有一个包括绿色社区、智慧社区，还包括养老社区，还有服务，还有一个对，科技社区，就是它有9个各种各样的概念，然后要在每一个新建的小区里边要实现，然后同时在它既有的小区的改造中也要实现这个目标。所以为什么浙江可以这样做呢？因为浙江是中国它有几个特点。第一个，它是老百姓最富裕的地方，城市人均居民收入在全国是第1位的，同时它是中国城乡居民收入差距最小的。它现在就像很多发达国家一样，它已经出现一个逆城市化的趋势，就是城市的居民开始向周边的郊区流动。但是这在中国这样的地区有，除了浙江以外还有一些，但总的来说还是比较少。在全国绝大部分地方，它面临的是一个 改造的问题。因为刚才我在演讲的时候也介绍了一个情况，不知道大家注意没注意？我们这个40年，其实就像林教授讲的，在数量的问题上，其实取得了一个很大的进步。1978年的时候，城镇居民人均住房建筑面积是6.7，到1998年的时候是18.7，然后到了现在的时候是人均40平米。建筑面积40平米，所以说它的量已经是非常大了。所以现在摆在我们面前最主要的问题就是说，几乎所有的人都有住房，但是又有在所有的人都有住房的这个条件前提下，有很多的人他的居住的不是特别舒服，所以怎么提高他的居住品质是我们的一个很大的一个问题。当然在有了这个前提以后，其实我来回答林教授讲的这个问题，就是中央层面确实他说的很准确。就我们因为还是一个分级管理的，有中央的政府，有省的政府，还有城市的政府。其实，在具体实施的时候，城市里边还有区和区的政府，这4级它是分别履行自己的职责。从中央政府来说，他要做的一个事情就是把这个事情想明白，就是他这个所有流程中，它的难点在哪里？在明白这个难点以后，我们来相应的制定政策，然后让这些城市政府在执行的时候，他根据我们的一个设想、一个要求，然后来做好具体的实施的方案。比如在做这个问题的时候，确实像林教授讲的，我们面临着一个资金的问题，面临着一个发动老百姓参与的问题，然后还面临着软件、硬件要共同提升的这个问题。但是把这个工作流程梳理下来以后，我在每一个环节有针对性的来确定我们的政策。比如像资金的问题，就是怎么发动，中央政府怎么尽可能的要拿出一点来，然后地方的政府也提供一点，同时要居民在什么情况下可以出什么样的钱，然后还有就是社会力量参与，这就需要给他一定的政策。我们有很多的政策给他，就是比如他的一个税费的减免，是增值税、所得税的一个优惠，同时的话，比如还有在城市政府的时候，允许他给他一个额外的一个政策，比如他如果参与老城区的建设的时候，可以给他同时给他一个在取得其他项目的建设的时候，给他一个优先的一个权利。但是从中央政府来说，我们只是说你可以这样干，城市政府他在这个框架下，他在确定具体的可以做到哪一些政策。对于老百姓来说，我们就是也有一些政策，比如要方便。要求每一个城市政府建立一个沟通议事的这样一个机制，利用线上线下的手段来听取市民的意见，同时要有一个专门的各个部门都参与的一个机制来回应老百姓的一个诉求，在这里边把整理各个老百姓的需要的一个愿望达成通过改造逐步的实现。所以其实就是我们也需要做一个链条的梳理，在这其中，但我们主要是把链条梳理清楚以后，针对存在的问题和我们要实现的一个目标，然后有针对性的制定一些政策，通过这个政策来引导政府的行为、社会企业的行为、社会力量的行为和老百姓的行为。
好，我从刘市长的刚才报告，实际上我感觉到我们国家的决心是很大的。刘市长说到我们搞这个老区改造，他提到了3个革命：流道革命、环境革命、管理革命。所以呢，我跟我们的主席说，我们应该组织一个访问考察团到北京，随时看看这个3个革命，我们应该怎么搞啊？My second question would like to pass to Mr. Miguel. Last evening when I read through Kelvin's PowerPoint, actually it brought me back to my planning school. We look at the garden city concept, the Lanark, the Edinburgh, Newtown, the sector. All these are very, very classic examples of Newtown development. And some of the very fundamentals are actually, still very valid today. One point I relate is in my work, in my PolyU, actually, about 1 year or 2 years ago, we started a symposium talking about making of intergenerational communities in vertical cities. And I saw your intergenerational housing. It is vertically integrated. And I really feel very interested to know. We know that will encounter a lot of problem, operational problem, financing problem, and how to put into the right mix of the population. So would you elaborate a little bit further about this point for us?
Yes, it's a problem that I've been spending much time dealing with. And I think my last slide showed that the benefits are significant, therefore it's worth the effort to try. And you need to understand who people are willing to live with. So not everybody can mix together, but there are certain types of housing and certain tenures of housing that people are comfortable to live with. So in other words, in our example, one of the problems is health worker housing. We can't get people to come and work in our hospitals, to work in the care system, because they have nowhere to live. So that is a significant problem we have already. But most people, my partner is a paramedic, and everyone in my development loves living next to us because they have a free paramedic next door. So it's the same that in this development, if the health workers and the care workers have reduced rent to live in the same building with the older population, and the older population who, it doesn't actually matter if they own the property or they rent the property or they own part of the property and rent half of the property, they're comfortable to live together as long as people are respectful. So the problem sometimes in intergenerational housing are when people don't respect each other, and some of the antisocial problems can appear. When you have like-minded people living in the same building, they don't have to be the same age. People who are younger have the same ideals and principles as people who are older. You just need to make sure you match them well together. So in our proposition, we're not mixing, it's not open for everybody, but it's open for older people who can buy, older people who can rent, but also health workers and key workers who will be very grateful to have somewhere to live, and the older people will be very grateful to have them on site because they become friendship networks. Because people like to be lively. People don't want to live with everyone the same. People want to mix. Now, the important thing in our intergenerational housing community is we look at the housing tower, but on a larger scale, the tower sits above the Health and Wellbeing Hub. The Health and Wellbeing Hub is the main community building for the whole city. That's where you'll go to concerts, to dances, to music, to the gym. So you can use that when you want, and there's degrees of privacy. So not everyone from that building can go into the intergenerational housing tower. We can consider how we mix or we separate the intergenerational housing tower. If older people are not comfortable mixing with the key workers or the health workers on their same floor, then they can be in the same neighborhood, sharing a winter garden. If they're not comfortable sharing the winter garden, they might just mix on the roof and the living room at the bottom. So there's all of these choices, and it's the choice of the people who live in the building, but also the choice of the developers, because we need funding to come not from the public sector and the private sector, so we need to work comfortably with them. And that's why we do the research. So if we do the research, we understand the market, and we share that with our partners, they're willing to take more risk. We understand in the UK that actually most of the private sector are interested in this new model because it gives them more people to sell to. It's a new market that they're opening up. So they're interested. If we do the research, we do the financial figures, we show them how it can work, then they'll be willing to work with us. So innovation takes everybody to take a risk.
So you are still in the process of trying this out? And
the process we're at the minute, we have the concept scheme. We're trying to get the finance in place. So by getting the government support and also the private sector support to prove it. But we have now the evidence base to show that it makes economic sense for people to invest in this new type of development.
Yeah, I think your experience is very relevant to our efforts here. our elderly housing, but we are talking about, a single housing, but you are really integrate them in a vertical manner.
Yeah.
And I think we look forward to, learning more from your experience.
Yeah. It is interesting because looking at Winnie's 4 different examples of housing, we're only risking 2 together at the minute. So we're risking for sale and for subsidized for sale. We aren't putting affordable rent, 100% rent in the same building. So it's step by step.
Yeah, and my third question is for Director Tang. You have made a very, very inspiring presentation for us. Your hardware, software, and artware summary immediately taken up by our lovely Winnie. And that's really, actually, that's a very good summary of what we are actually doing. But you managed to summarize it in a very clear and a very impactful manner. I would like to raise one point again about your multi-generational housing effort. Actually, last week I visited Singapore 6 days. I almost visit all the places Director Tang have mentioned, except I missed the Queenstown, so I'll make it up next time. But I think the multi-generational housing is very much a reflection of the Oriental value, or the Confucian's teaching, that all the different generations to live together and then take care of each other. And then you have devised a nationwide policy to enable this to happen. And certainly, you also go through, your demographic change, approaching more aging community. You didn't explain a lot about this, but I just wonder what mechanism that you would make this really happen, and what's the effect so far in your implementation of this multi-generational housing policy?
Thanks, Professor Ling. He puts me to shame. He spent 6 days in Singapore, and he have seen towns which I have not explored in a deep way. Okay, on your question about intergenerational housing, I think you hit the nail on the head to say that this is very Asian in terms of outlook, filial piety, and therefore when the seniors growing old, the kids taking care of their seniors. And even in a small space like Singapore, what is important is actually you need the children to be staying with the senior, but sometimes that's too close to comfort. They should be at least staying near to their parents or parents-in-law. So actually that's what we seek to achieve. This is in terms of relations, so it's your children, your parents, in that way. So as I've explained in my presentation, for new flats which we develop, we have schemes to allow them to apply together, and we give them priority ahead of other families. That's a way to say that we encourage mutual care and support, and therefore these schemes in place. For resale flats, it's a willing buyer-seller. We can't quite prioritize people. What we do is we incentivize it with a grant. So the proximity housing grant. So we say that if you buy a flat to stay with your parents, you enjoy a grant. If you buy a flat to stay near your parents, defined as 4 kilometers. 4 kilometers. If your house
So
is within
quantitative,
4
huh?
kilometers, you get also a grant,
Yeah.
a smaller grant.
Okay.
So you get a bigger grant if you stay with, and a smaller grant but you get some money to buy your flat, which in a willing buyer-seller private market is a big deal. So that's what we do, and that's in terms of people whom you know, your children and your parents. But in terms of even people that you don't know, and this is the part about intergenerational communities, we believe the Housing Development Board can make a difference in terms of the built environment, in the planning and design, to encourage the young to interact with the old. And I think, Kelvin, you're exactly right, that when you put them together, depending on the personalities, they may get along. The idea is to provide more spaces so that there's some place to run to. You know, you go to different places. You don't like neighbor A, you go and meet neighbor C. That kind of thinking. So how we start is that we make it a point to locate our elder care center and childcare center side by side. And the playground, which the childcare center will always have, will be next to the elderly fitness center. You know, there are some playstations that elderly can handle more easily. So there are these chance encounter, occasional encounters, which they will have during the rest periods when they come and go off their activity, and the children for the classes. So they have chance encounters.
Yes.
We also encourage the players, because there are some players in Singapore that deals with elder care and childcare. So they have co-programming. So actually, the children do get involved in helping the seniors do their arts and crafts and keep them engaged. And studies have found that it is mutually beneficial. In terms of the children, in encouraging empathy, in being able to understand a more inclusive society, what aging means. Some of them may not have grandparents, then they have interactions with elderly or more senior people. And for the seniors, I think it's quite obvious, is emotional, social engagement, avoid social isolation. So we have found that to be quite useful. And my main message is that actually the built environment can make a difference. And this is a call out to the people in this room, that actually our role is significant, that you can have profound impact on behaviors, profound impact on values, and how people live their lives. So I think that's what I will
That's
say.
great. Actually, last Sunday, I visited the Campton Admiralty. Of course, it was Sunday, so all the activity centers are closed, but I can really feel, you know, if it was on a weekday, the vibrancy and the activities. This 4-kilometer magic figure is very interesting. So Andrew, our director of lands, when a housing society acquires sites to develop this multi-generational estates, please be generous to us. You know, calculation of premium. Yes, I visited a lot of places in Singapore in my last visit, 6 days visit. Of course, I did pay a cost. You know, my wife complained, was it a vacation? Anyway, last question I'd like to put to Winnie. Actually, in my opinion, we have lost 20 years in land and housing development. The first 10 years because of the Asian financial turmoil, property price dropped by 60 to 70%, and then the government stopped almost all the strategic land formation project. And then the next 10 years, when we want to trigger again our development machine, we met with a lot of opposition, you know, political argument, slow down everything. So in the next 10 years, in my opinion, we need to do works of 30 years. So that's really a challenge. I just want to ask, do you have the confidence that we can achieve our target? And what is the basis of your confidence? And in this room, you have all your partners. The NGOs who have helped in transitional housing, they will be playing an active role in light public housing. All the development-related professionals, town planners, architects, engineers, surveyors, building constructors. What would be your call to them so that they can support you?
Thank you, KK. A very clear and confident yes. Yes. It's Hong Kong spirit. I think our Hong Kong spirit is back. I think that's the most important. Without all the arguments, without all the political struggles that we have been experiencing, it's Hong Kong. Look at the video. In the past 50 years, we faced a fire, we faced a large-scale squatters along the hill. We've done it. Look at the historical figures. Even with the construction technology back 20 years ago, we can do it. Why can't we do it now? I think it's the unity. I clearly feel the unity that the construction sector, the construction professional is supporting this journey. And I think I have one very important slide is 背靠祖國，聯通世界. This is Hong Kong. We have a very, very strong manufacture base in mainland, a very strong technological advancement in mainland, and they are already integrating with the construction industry. So just to bring those technology in Hong Kong and our experience in the past in fighting the COVID and to build a lot of quarantine camps and even a temporary hospital within 4 months shows that we can do it. It's just coming together, joining hands, and believing in what we are doing. And then, after 10 years, after I have cleared all these problems, we can think about beautiful housing model like Singapore, right? All the greening, all the high standard provisions that are in the units. But we have these 30 years of homework to clear, right? So again, please help Hong Kong, help the Housing Bureau. Whenever you have the chance to work on a housing project, whether you are an architect, engineer, manufacturer, and even in the logistic company, IT company, think of ways coming together. And even the operation of housing estates, you contribute a lot in empowering the people. It's not just a shelter. It's life-changing. You are teaching them new skills, the family, new skills to move on and bring Hong Kong to a next generation. And before I end what I want to say, KK, can you share with me your itinerary to Singapore?
Sure.
And I will add
can.
Queenstown in it. And that's my dream in the next 10 years to come. Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, with this very, I would say, very inspiring sharing and discussion, I just written down, perhaps we may have a few takeaways. One is that we need to shift from age segregation to age integration. Right? In the past decades, all the housing, the community facilities, they're decided on a age segregation mindset or principle. All right? We have youth hostels, elderly housing, children playground, this and that. But now we need to go for age integration, and that can be done, as seen from the examples shared by our speakers. The second thing is we need to move from the concept of or the mindset of estate management to community care. This is the hardware that Director Tang shared with us. Not only estate management, but community care. The third is that we also need to shift from the silo function of our buildings, of some of our buildings, to integrated community function. All right, we can integrate public housing car park, our elderly services center, the medical care center. We can all put them under one roof and provide the greatest convenience to the potential user. They are of different generations. And perhaps the fourth one is that, yes, we have been building a lot of communities and neighborhoods over the years, but we know that these neighborhoods need continuous rejuvenation. Otherwise, their vibrancy, their life, will die away. So actually, in the next 20 years, Hong Kong will be building a lot of communities in the Lofton metropolis, in the Gao Yizhou artificial islands, and the massive urban redevelopment and urban renewal in our oldest part of our city. So there will be a lot of community building, and actually let us also shift from we are not only build buildings, we are building communities, and these communities will be smart, healthy, and green, and multi-generational. So thank you very much.